Alright, so products will be listed down below in the description box so I can breeze through the tutorial. I have prepped my skin with moisturizer and a facial oil because I have very dry skin, and now I'm just priming with a setting spray and an illuminating primer, and I'm just blending this all over my face and down my neck. If you guys have oily skin or combination skin, just avoid putting this in the T-zone where you can get extra shiny. And all the products that I'm going to use, I do blend down my neck because I just want everything to look seamless and not like my head is just floating there with makeup. And then I pounce it in with a makeup sponge. And now I'm color correcting with a cream color corrector. If you don't have any discoloration, you don't have to do this, but I do have hyperpigmentation around my mouth and eyes, so that's where I'm correcting. I'm just going ahead and mixing two different foundations just to get the right shade for my skin tone. Both of these are very lightweight, matte, and are very long wearing. They also look very skin-like. And I do prefer a more matte foundation on a wedding day just because I feel like it looks flawless and smooth and lasts way longer. As long as you prep your skin to your skin's needs, then it's going to be all good. So I'm just using a dense foundation brush to build sheer layers, and it's really important to work in sheer layers because if you go in with too much foundation all at once, it's going to build up weird, it's going to look cakey, it's not going to set well. So you want to go in with thin layers, let each layer dry, and then build on top of that. And between each layer, I am blending it in with a sponge as well. It's so important to press any cream products in with a sponge. This is going to ensure that your makeup looks as skin-like as possible. And here I'm just adding more coverage where I need it with that foundation. You don't want to build an entire second layer over your whole face. You want to build it just where you need it, otherwise you're going to risk it looking cakey and makeup-y. Remember to press it in with a sponge. Next, I'm using a full coverage concealer in a shade that is very close to my skin tone to just conceal any areas that I need on the face. So for me, it's around the mouth where I have that hyperpigmentation. So I'm just finishing off the coverage there with the concealer so I don't spend a million years trying to build it up with the foundation. And make sure to use very, very small amounts to avoid caking. Then I'm using a cream bronzer to bronze and contour in one step. I'm just using a small flat foundation brush to draw it on where I want it. So that's just around the cheekbones, over the forehead, and you can see how I draw it diagonally from the outside of my eyes up to the temple. And this is going to create a lifted effect to the face. And also taking that underneath the jawline. And again, just to keep things cohesive with my neck as I do to the face, you'll see that I also take that bronzer down the hollows of my neck. And I'm taking about a medium dense brush to stipple that bronzer in, and stippling, which just means this pressing motion, is going to blend that bronzer for you. And the reason that I'm not swiping it around is because I want to keep the bronzer where it is. So at least for the cheekbones, I'm just pressing it. Underneath the jaw, I don't mind swiping it around because you can't really see how neat you have to be. But as you can see, when I get to the forehead and temple, I'm again pressing that to blend it. And once you have diffused most of that product, you can do little swiping motions if you want. And then I'm blending in the edges with that sponge. Next, I'm taking a concealer a couple shades lighter than my skin tone, and I'm going to be using this to conceal and highlight. So just taking a little bit underneath the eyes, into the corners of the eyes where I get a bit of darkness, and just underneath the outside of my eyes to lift, and on the eyelids to conceal. And I'm taking that a little bit just on the sides of the nose as well. And down the center of my nose and the center of the forehead just a little bit. And then I'm just taking a really fluffy eyeshadow brush and I'm sort of blending that out where I want it to go. The reason that I'm doing this with a brush first is because I just want to move the product and keep the coverage. If I go in with a sponge all at once, I feel like the sponge kind of takes the coverage away, so I'm just moving the concealer where I want it to go first. And I'm blending the concealer from the outside corner of the eye up to the temple, just to lift the eye area. And now I'm pressing all the concealer in with the sponge, and I am using a light hand, and I'm not being too rough here because again, I don't want to move the coverage away, but I still want to work that concealer into the skin. And I'm using my foundation brush with whatever product is left on there just to blend the edges of the concealer with the contour. Next, I'm going in with a cream blush, which looks really intense in the pot, but once you blend out cream blushes, they go more sheer. So I'm using a very pinky shade here, and I think that looks very romantic and pretty for a wedding day. So I'm using the same brush that I used for my cream contour and just stippling that up. And I'm blending that all over the cheeks and up the cheekbones and sort of around the nose as well, just to give it a very naturally flushed look. And at the end of all my creams, I have just used my setting spray all over my face. And here I'm setting all my cream bronzer and contour with a powder bronzer. And I'm just lightly tapping that on with a fluffy bronzer brush. And for the most part, when you're applying powder products over creams, you want to make sure that you do tap on and don't swipe, so you're not moving that product underneath. And again, when it comes to the jaw, I can be a little less careful because for some reason it just seems to go smoother and you don't see the mistakes. And then I'm topping that off with a more shimmery bronzer, and this is just going more on the high points of my cheekbones. So it is acting as a bronzer, but it's definitely more glowy. Then I'm going to set the face with a loose setting powder, and I'm just blending out any creases that may have formed in the concealer. And I'm taking a fluffy brush and just setting underneath the eye, around the eye, and anywhere where I've put that concealer. And then I'm using a powder puff to just pack excess powder underneath the eyes and around the nose, and basically kind of over my T-zone where I can tend to get a little bit shiny through the day. And this is basically what is called a bake. I'm letting that loose powder sit in those areas to really lock in the products so they don't get oily or crease or move throughout the day. And this is what's really going to ensure that your makeup does not come off for like the rest of the day. And if you don't have a puff, use a dense brush or a makeup sponge. And then I'm just dusting off all that powder after letting it sit for a few minutes. The oilier your skin is, the longer you can let it sit. I would say up to 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'm taking a pressed face powder closer to my skin tone, and I'm using that with my sponge to set underneath the jaw and around the mouth. And I also do let this sit for maybe a couple minutes in excess and dust it off with a fluffy brush. And then I'm just using the powder to set the rest of my neck and ears where I have foundation as well. I know this is a lot of powder, but for a wedding day, this really does keep your makeup lasting all day, and it also gives you such a flawless look. And then with the powder bronzer, I'm just bronzing underneath the bottom lip to make it look more full. And I'm also contouring around the tip of my nose. I don't really like to go all up and down my nose. I feel like it gives it too harsh of a look for me personally. And then on a more detailed brush, I'm using it to sort of overline my lips. And this is exactly like you would do a lip liner, but I'm doing it with the bronzer first because it gives it a more natural, soft, pouty lips look. Then I'm using a really peachy highlighter, and I couldn't find my highlighter brush here, so I just used my sponge to press it in over the tops of the cheekbones and kind of also down to the apples of the cheeks as well. And this highlighter does have some glitter particles in it, so if you don't like that, just use whatever you like. And on the Cupid's bow as well. Then I'm applying a Dusty Rose blush exactly where I put the cream blush. And remember, we're just pressing that powder in with a brush. And you'll see here that I do bring the blush down my neck just to keep the colors cohesive. And I'm speeding through my brow routine here because frankly it's boring and we all have a different brow routine. So just do whatever you like. For me, I just brush up my brows with a brow wax and then I'm filling it in with a powder a couple shades lighter than my actual brow hairs. And then I take a brow pen and I just draw in the little hairs. Now for eyes, I'm using my cream bronzer and blending it all over the lid and taking the excess to blend it through the crease. Using a cream on your eyes is going to help make your eyeshadows last a lot longer, just like we do with the face by layering creams and powders. It also helps build the intensity of the eyeshadows that you put on your eyes without you having to spend so much time packing on powder eyeshadow. And honestly, it makes the blending so much easier because it's way easier to blend creams than it is powders. So this is going to help create a more seamless base for you for your eyeshadows. Now I'm taking a mix of the shimmery and matte bronzers that I used on my face, and I'm taking that on a fluffy eyeshadow brush and just running that through the crease of my eyes. And again, take less product and build it up as you go. Don't try to go in with too much at once. And I do drag out that color to the outside of my eye just to give it a more cat eye shape. And tips for a seamless blend: hold your brush further out on the handle, and that's going to help you have a lighter hand when you're blending. And also blend the edges of your eyeshadow when you have little to no product left on your brush. I would say even take a completely clean, fluffy brush to blend the edges. Honestly, it makes the biggest difference in getting a seamless blend. And with a detailed brush, I'm just running the bronzers underneath my eyes. And then I place some champagne eyeshadow on the inner corners of my eyes, a little bit underneath the brow bone. And then with the highlighter that I used on my face, I'm just packing that on to the center of my lid as my main shimmer. And I'm using this particular highlighter because it does have those glittery flecks in it. I would say using any eyeshadow with fine glitter will give you such a beautiful look that's gonna just glow when the light hits it. And here I'm using a very dark brown shadow just to sketch out a light wing liner. And I'm using a very small detail brush to do that. Honestly, using powder to sketch out a liner is the easiest way to do a wing liner, for me at least. And I do this with a powder first, and then I'm going to go in with a liquid to build it up. And that's going to help you to build a liner way easier. And for the wing, I'm just starting at the outer corner of the eye and following the shape that we created with the contour and the concealer. And here I'm just packing on more of that highlighter with my finger to get more of a payoff. And I'm just using my concealer brush to clean up the line underneath the wing. For the liquid liner, I'm actually taking my brow pen in the shade Brunette because I feel like it is the perfect soft shade of brown and it's not as pigmented as an actual liquid liner would be. So I just want to create a soft wing here, and I'm just following that powder shape that we created, but not as high up. So I'm just keeping it closer to the lash line and using a dark brown shadow to blend the edges of that liquid liner. And curling my lashes here. Trust me, it makes a huge difference. I'm applying a lash primer first, and I feel like it really gives me a more voluminous lash effect with whatever mascara I'm using. And then going in with a couple coats of mascara. I'm a perfectionist with mascara because I don't use dramatic lashes or false lashes often, so I really build my natural lashes up with mascara. For this look, I'm just going to use a few individual lashes. And this is a trick that I learned from Sandra Deluxe to run bronzer through the brows just to soften them up. I've got my lash clusters here and I'm just letting the glue dry. And in the meantime, I'm lining my lips with a deep brown lip liner, and I'm overlining the bottom lip but keeping the top one more natural. Along with that, I also do fill in the outer corners of the lips with this liner just to give it a bit more depth, because I find that if I put a lip color on without this, it just looks kind of flat. And then I go in with a detail brush and smudge out that line. This is very important for a naturally overlined lip. Smudge out that liner. And I'm filling in the rest of the lips with like a pinky nude lip liner. And filling in your lips with a lip liner is just going to ensure longevity of whatever lipstick you use on top. And then I'm using this pinky nude liquid lipstick. I normally wouldn't go for a liquid lipstick for a wedding day just because I find it too drying, but this is all I had. So I'm just taking a light amount and blotting it on the lips. And I always take whatever powder blush I used on my face over my lips just to tie in the colors. And here I'm just placing a few individual lash clusters on the outer corners of my eyes. So I think I put like 3 or 4 on each outer corner. And these were in the size medium. I do wish I had some short ones left just to kind of taper them off into the middle. And just placing a bit of nude gloss on the center of the lips. I also run that blush through my crease just to tie in all the colors on the face. And you know, just because we're taking pictures and making a video, I'm filling in my hairline with a dark brown shadow just to make it look full and nice. It is your wedding day after all. There you have it, guys, a really beautiful drugstore bridal makeup look. Honestly, just use whatever you have on hand and practice it a few times so you have the look down. Forgot to spray my face with setting spray. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.